The Russian Union will not retreat without a genuine military defeat. Ukraine will not make it see sense, because once again European racism and arrogance will quickly exclude a defeated Ukraine from the ranks of Europeans and say that the Slavs lost to each other, but we are the true Europeans, and we will show Moscow now. This episode is from February 22nd of this year. Now we read Western media. Western tanks, Leopard and Abrams, considered the world's best, performed extremely poorly in Ukraine, writes the American publication National Security Journal. The blame lies with the Ukrainians. They don't know how to maintain complex machines. In addition, AFU tactics are not adapted for NATO equipment. In the end, it becomes an easy target for Russian drones. The brilliant West then tried to explain its technology's failure to buyers and investors by saying Ukrainians are just incompetent. But don't you worry. If you're competent and don't fight Russia, your technology will work. You have our word. Here's a little more from a Western publication. The German Leopard 2 is still regarded as the benchmark main battle tank because it combines speed, its robust armor, and its firepower with exceptional precision. It's a system that's hard to destroy if used correctly. The 2A7V modification features modular armor, improved sensors, and a more powerful 120mm cannon designed for maximum effectiveness at long ranges and increased crew survivability. Operators value its mobility, its optics, and its fire control accuracy, qualities which enable tanks to engage targets before the enemy has a chance to react. The fighting in Ukraine revealed an unpleasant truth. Even elite tanks can perform poorly without proper maintenance, reliable logistics, and combined arms tactics that don't assume armored vehicles fight alone. Oh, you've really laid it on thick. What a mess. The state will read an ad brochure about elite tanks, then buy 70-ton junk for a couple $100 million. And then a GERAN drone flies in asking, "Have you seen any scruffy cats around? I have an order for boom kebab." And that, of course, is absolutely no reason to wonder if your tanks are really so elite that they're torn to shreds by a flower pot. In essence, that's the West. After a defeat, it starts looking not for the reasons for its failure, but for excuses and explanations in the form of Russians fighting incorrectly, not by the book. The manufacturer has ideal equipment, but Russia, that darn country, won't let repair crews work in peace. It takes and removes everything that moves. But is that a normal operating mode for equipment? Leopard 2 is widely recognized as being one of the best, most reliable, and effective main battle tanks in the world. Some armored vehicle enthusiasts consider it to be equal, if not superior, to the American M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. The publication continues. Recognized? By whom is it recognized? The fields of Novorossiya, the lands of Donbass, strongly condemn this recognition and deem it unfounded, because your most reliable and best actively shat required diapers. You know, last year Ural Vaganzavod's CEO was asked how he felt about NATO equipment, and here's his answer. Certainly we observe those features and interesting points that could offer us some future development. But if we're being honest, these are still machines from the last century. End of quote. By the way, did the assessors use these estimates? Or as always, should one not trust the opinion of Russians because this is Kremlin propaganda? Renowned for its superb mobility, it's equipped with a 1,500 horsepower engine, first-class optics, and high-precision fire control. This third-generation German main battle tank offers an optimal balance of firepower, speed, and protection. I won't argue, the tank is beautiful. I saw it in its counterpart, the Abrams, in Moscow, on Poklanaya Hill. I specifically traveled from St. Petersburg to see the German cat and take a photo with it. Compared to our guys, Western tanks look especially impressive. I think those who saw that exhibit in Moscow or other Russian cities will confirm my words. After our guys, Western tech looks especially beautiful. It would be great if it always looked this way, because when it moves on its own, it causes a lot of trouble, but after being refined by a Russian file, it's a treat. The next quote is going to be especially beautiful. Ukrainians do not utilize the combined arms tactics that the German and U.S. armed forces rely upon. Such combat implies that various branches of the armed forces coordinate their actions within a single operation to achieve maximum results. The Leopard 2 is specifically designed to operate in conjunction with air support and the combined actions of infantry and armored vehicles. But the Russians built deep defenses which forced exhausting offensive operations. The astonishing audacity of these Russians, they just went and built deep defenses that must be exhaustingly stormed in offensive operations. Do these barbarians really not know that when the West arrives on the battlefield, all waters must part before it, like the Red Sea before Moses? Horror. Making tanks do what they were built for, even in harsh conditions, is, of course, not in the operating manual, so it can't be called a defeat for Western tech. The main battle tank remains fundamental for modern ground combat, combining firepower, mobility, and protection, all essential for battlefield dominance. Tanks remain highly relevant and absolutely essential for contemporary ground warfare. This is despite their inherent vulnerability to modern anti-tank weapons and drones, particularly evident in Ukraine. The Leopard 2, for its part, is considered an outstanding main battle tank, truly one of the best in the world, the publication concludes. Translation provided by Inna Media. Despite the mocking tone of the narrative, we must draw serious conclusions. Just saying halva won't make your mouth sweet. No matter how much Western newspapers try to cover up the failure of their equipment, the failure of their design school in battle against Russian military and engineering genius, this failure is obvious, and obvious to all buyers. Of course, if your tank is for war with bribed generals in Iraq, whose gear is obsolete, then it's no problem. That equipment will do. But a battle against an equal opponent revealed that the West is de facto without combat-ready equipment. Essentially, the Germans have remained true to themselves, and just as they crafted their Panthers during the last Great War, they are acting in precisely the same way today. In theory, each of their individual tanks is a masterpiece, a marketing masterpiece. For combat use, it's only suitable if the enemy is blind, deaf, and completely paralyzed. But since Russia sees well, hears well, and is fully active, Western tanks are now on Poklanaya Hill like on a podium. This is our significant advantage, even over the Western military-industrial complex. Even if the West manages to ramp up its capabilities, it will have to admit the failure not just of its technical creation, but of its entire design school. This is something they cannot do, and, most likely, never will. This episode shows us how Western thought is entering a process of denying Russian reality, which we only briefly demonstrated to them. Now, as we predicted, they have accused Ukraine of misusing their equipment. After the West single-handedly starts a war and ends it the same way, it will have to invent something else. For example, winter, which they love to blame there. Winter and frost have won again. Or, as in Ukraine's case, Bush's thwarted the 2023 counteroffensive. At the same time, the muddy season hinders and the frost hinders. Everything hinders the West, but not the West itself and its foolishness. Well then, all that remains is to wish the West to remain true to itself. Yes, the West is dangerous to us, and this enemy is cunning and unpredictable. We must not forget that. But as long as the West believes in its superiority, this enemy is blind to us. Pride is blind, and the West is deeply mired in it, as we see with the world's best tanks, which got a little worn out in the fields of Novorossiya.